I think a lot of people believe that if they want to change their life and create different results, they have to work really, really hard. And even Oprah has a quote that says, "You can have it all, just not all at once." And I disagree.
Regan Hillyer, world's #1 manifestation teacher, serial entrepreneur, mindset coach, and international speaker.
We're all born manifestors. Everything you do and don't have in your life right now, you've manifested, or you haven't manifested, but it's all a reflection of you.
She went from having $100,000 in debt to manifesting her dream life, career, and relationship.
When you're in this place and you're trying to control every detail and you're like, it must happen this way, you can't even see the magic. This now reality is your second chance to completely create a new future.
Discover the simple practices you need to manifest your dream life.
I would love people to believe that they really can have it all in their life. Just give yourself 3 minutes every day for the rest of your life, and I promise you, your life will change.
The reality of your life in this present moment is a result of all your past decisions, thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Like it? Great. Don't like it? Too bad. And then you go on to say, all you can do is to start to change the present. Now that you're in control of. This is a direct excerpt from your book, Change Your Life in 3 Minutes. And I was just curious about it because it landed really so well for me. It's so aligned to how I think. I was like, I want to start the conversation with this. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, I think that, everything really comes down to your inner reality. Everything comes down to conditioning yourself from the inside out. So really anything you're looking to shift or change or manifest in your life comes down to this core alignment and this core internal work, that you get to dive into and shift and recalibrate so that you can start being the version of you that becomes a match for what you're looking to call in.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really landed for me is that you share that your past, however you see it, it wouldn't matter, and it doesn't matter. And that at some point you have to start to decide that today is the day that really matters. And I find it often, especially right now, and how we have, from my point of view at least, sometimes feels like glamorized our pasts and glamorized our traumas and just associate ourselves so much from our past. But I really resonated with the line where you said, but present is what you're in control of.
Yeah.
And as I go through your book, and I have seen your trainings, of course, on our platform and on your social media, which is phenomenal that you share so openly and beautifully, that you're a lot more about right now is when the change starts.
Yeah. It really is. And all we have is right now. What most people don't realize, that you touched on, is our now is an accumulation of all of our past thoughts and beliefs and decisions and changes and things we did and didn't do. And we're like that accumulation up to now. And what people do is they think at now, that's just who they are. And they get trapped and locked in the construct of that illusion. And they don't realize that at any moment they can choose to create a different now. So what most people are doing is they're copy pasting their past into the now, and then they're copy pasting that into their future, which means their future isn't changing. Mm-hmm. But at any moment, someone can come to the present moment and realize that this is a new moment, a new second to create a whole new reality, right? And people just forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how does one, let's say if somebody like now listening to this is saying, yeah, but my past, right? Oh, I had a parent that didn't love me, or that Jackie in 3rd grade told me that, I'm not pretty, or whatever the heck it is. How does one really start to take control of such past stories or let go of such past stories?
Yeah, well, the first step is awareness that it's a story. Right? And if it's a story and it's from your past, then you can shift it and you can change it. Like we said, this now reality is your second chance to completely create a new future. But again, we can't do that if we're taking the old stories with us. So if we firstly recognize, okay, this is just a story, then you can choose to rewrite that story. And it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It didn't mean that something was tragic, for example. It didn't mean that, that person was wrong when they said that thing to you. Maybe that did happen. But how do you choose to respond to it? And how do you choose to react to it consciously? And if you're able to consciously say, okay, that happened, but this is now the new story. This is the lesson that I integrate from the past circumstance into this reality, then we can take that new information into the future and create a new future for ourselves.
That's Beautifully said. And the new future, and there's a lot of times that you bring about the truth about that you need to know where you're going. You need to be crystal clear about your vision. And as I speak to more and more people today, I find a lot of individuals find it really hard to determine a clear long-term or short-term future of themselves, like vision or purpose is a big conversation. It used to be not so much probably because we were living in our situations, but now that we have more abundance of time, space, and resources in our world, everybody's like, well, what's the point of, like, why am I doing what am I doing? What's my purpose? What's the meaning? What's my vision? What are some of the ideas that you have that one can listen to today that would help them really define that vision clearly, or that, or get that clarity in their vision?
For sure. Well, you want to make sure, where are you getting the information around defining your vision from? Because what most people are doing is they're creating this from the construct of their mind or their ego. And then when we do it that way, we're also creating from our limiting structures. We're creating from our childhood conditioning, from our conditioning from society, and all these pieces. You know, so many people say, oh, you know, I guess I would want this or that in my life. But when you really dig deeper, it's not what they actually want. It's what someone else has told them they could have or should be like. So the other way to do this is when we start tapping into the wisdom of our soul. And this is where we're tapping into our highest potential across time and space. And we're allowing ourselves to actually access this information and allow it to download through us, if you like, code through us. And we're receiving the vision rather than trying to create the vision. So most people are saying, okay, you know, what would my vision be? Let me write it down. Versus creating the space to build a relationship with their own soul. And from there, receive the innate wisdom of their soul, which is, by the way, non-linear and not logical. So often when you receive a download from your soul, and I'm sure you have this many times in your life too, you're like, wow, really? This seems almost left field. But when you start following the path of that, something amazing unlocks in your life. So someone each and every single day can wake up in the morning, close their eyes, and just ask themselves, okay, I choose to connect with my soul right now. What does my soul desire today? How many people are stopping and creating space to listen to their soul? Most people are not. And when you do this, it can look different every day. It might be like, you know what? I want to get up and move my body. Or you know what? I want to stay in bed for the next half an hour. And your soul is like, just be still. And in that stillness, you stay in bed, you just relax, you're there. And all of a sudden you have a vision. All of a sudden you see someone's face and you're like, I have to call that person. You do that and then an amazing opportunity opens up. We start tapping into this innate wisdom, but we must actually participate in this relationship. We've got to nurture it. We've got to cultivate it. And if we do it, we start creating a vision that's in alignment with our soul's path, again, rather than this limiting construct.
I'm curious. So, because I found, at least myself, not today, but definitely in the past, where I have traded in, oh, I'll be guided to procrastination, of not doing anything. Because, you know, when you're exhausted and tired, which happens to be the case with many individuals, especially if they have chased a vision from the first version, which is based on the stories around us, and we decide this is what I want in my life, and we start chasing it, we start creating for it, and sometimes it doesn't manifest as quickly, or at least in the timeline that we want to put towards it, to say this must happen by this time, and we get frustrated. We get, okay, this is not going to happen. How do you know that, am I being guided to rest today, or am I frustrated and I'm leaning into procrastination? Or is there even a signal for this?
Yeah, I think there is a signal, and it's very subtle and it's different for everyone, but you've got to look at where is this signal coming from within your own system. And you've got to learn how to recognize this and then train yourself to recognize, okay, is this guidance or is this sabotage? Right? Is this alignment, or am I acting from a misaligned place? And so, and it's very subtle. It really takes a lot of practice to tune into this. So for example, you might say, okay, cool, you know, I think this is guidance from my soul that I'm not meant to do this thing. And then you don't do it and you put it off. And then something happens in your life and you're like, I should have done that thing, right? You have that moment where you're like, why didn't I listen? So instead of beating yourself up about it or judging yourself or just forgetting about it, use it as a learning opportunity, right? And then we can look back and be like, well, why did I not listen? What program or pattern played a part in that? Where did I disconnect and maybe not trust the guidance of my soul that is actually looking to come through? And you can learn from that so that you get better at it. Now, it's also the same when you have the guidance don't do that thing, and you don't do the thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm so happy I listened. It really wasn't good for me to do that thing. Where did you receive that guidance? Was it a thought? Did you feel it in your heart center? Was it a feeling in your gut? Did you get goosebumps in your body? It's different for everyone. But when they start tapping into this guidance, when we all start tapping into it, it shows up in the same way. And you start noticing the programs that get activated through this, and you can start recognizing the signs and the signals. You know, one of the ways that's great to start tapping into this soul knowledge and this soul feeling and this intuitive guidance is if you have a big decision, like let's say someone says to you, hey, you're in America right now, I want you to fly to Bali next week. And you're just like, the mind is like, oh my goodness, like it's Bali, it's very far away, it's expensive, I don't know if I can do this, and all these thoughts come. But you have a feeling like could be amazing, right? There's amazing people there, I want to go to Bali. What I would do in that scenario, if I had this, should I go, should I not? Should I go, should I not? Is I would start packing my bag. I would physically get my suitcase. I'd be like, where's my hat? Where are my clothes? I'd start packing. And while I'm doing that, I check in. How does this feel? Does this feel really good? And am I excited? Okay, I'm going to like get the bag. I'm going to order an Uber. How am I feeling? And you role play it out. And if you're feeling like, no, something's not right here, you trust that. And if you're feeling like, okay, yeah, actually, this makes no sense. I can't believe I'm going to Bali, but this feels amazing. And you follow that. So you learn to also like split test, if you like, your connection to your soul and go into these deeper layers of awareness.
So you're saying that it's also about really knowing your feelings and kind of your sensations, if I may, in your body. One of the things that I use for me to know if this is true or not for me is I give myself 30 days. Like if an idea, a thing knocks at my consciousness for 30 days, doesn't have to be constant, but happens, like it's like, oh, that was the thing that I was going to do. That was the thing. If it knocks at me for 30 days, I know this is true. Like this is definitely a calling and not a, because what I found, and I get distracted. I don't know if you do or not, and I'm sure there are a lot of listeners of mine that are kind of like me, but we get distracted sometimes because we are looking at something, we're like, that looks fascinating from the outside. I have no idea if it is fascinating or not, but from the outside, it looks amazing, right? And because suddenly you feel like, oh, that looks amazing, you want it.
Yeah.
Not from a place of ego, because you want to be amazing. You know, it's more like, oh, that looks amazing. I love to feel amazing. And because of that, sometimes I found myself doing things that I'm like, I don't actually enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Right. But because of that, I kind of put this filter where I was like, all right, 30 days. If 30 days later, I still feel and I'm not influenced, because then I'm not influenced by the person around me. Because let's say I come to them and we're recording this at an event that it starts tomorrow. Suddenly you go, I want to speak at events. Right? Because you see somebody speaking at an event and you go, I want that. Like that feels amazing. But if in 30 days, I don't feel like speaking at an event, I know that's not for me.
Yeah.
Because I can go, oh, okay, you know what? It was just a noise at the time. That wasn't my soul's calling.
Yeah.
That was stimulus, if I may call it that.
For sure.
So that's a filter that I have, which is less to do with sensations, but more to do with time.
Yeah.
That anything true to your soul would be present to you a little bit longer
absolutely.
than something that's a stimulus.
Oh, I love this. Another way that someone can do this as well is each day write down all the things that you want to do or that you're present to, or, you know, especially if you're an artist or a creator, like once you start opening your channel, you have a lot of ideas. It's not like, what video should I create? It's like, here's the 100 that I want to create, right? And it's like, where do we even start with that? So write them out, and then and just leave it. And the next day, write it out again and just leave it. And the next day, write it out again, and you'll notice there'll be one or two where it's like, okay, I need to film this now. It's super present. All the others just get to sit there. Sometimes we get to go through almost a purge of all the information coming through so we can get to the purity of what's really alive for us.
Yeah, that's so true. And those are great techniques. Like I realized this started to happen for me recently because of some decisions I made in life. It just totally manifested. And so I got some more space because I wanted to create some more space for my creativity and for my professional enhancement of coaching, being able to really do the stuff that I want to do, because I was in the rut of being CEO in a way and just constantly just building the business, which is great. I love it. And after a point, it was just like, I don't want to do that. I want to focus on what I really want to artfully present in a way. And as I made that decision, it's become more present that I have so much download that comes. Like I remember the other day I was podcasting another friend of ours, and he's a creativity coach. And so as we were talking and having a conversation, he was talking about how, creativity is something that is channeled through you and so on and so forth. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm more, let's set up 3 hours and be creative in those 3 hours and go to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Very much like there's a structure and a process to everything.
Yeah.
Right. And what happens, lo and behold, next day I'm driving for the next set of podcasts, and a poem comes after 20 years. I've not written for 20 years. And 20 years later, while I'm driving to the podcast, and it's so evident and so present to me, I had to stop my car and write the poem before I
Wow.
can continue the drive, because I was like, I cannot not write this right now. And I'm
Right.
somebody who wouldn't, type and drive
Yeah.
and all that stuff. I don't use Siri and all that stuff. So anyways, what I'm really trying to say is, when it's present, I feel like what you're saying as well is, when it's present, and you
Yeah.
will know that, oh, there's something here.
Absolutely.
Has that happened for you?
Yes, a lot. So
Tell us something more.
many times. And I feel, sometimes the soul also operates in whispers, sometimes it's not in flashing lights and it's like, oh my goodness, yes, I feel this so much. Sometimes it's like a little whisper and it's like, go left, just go left. And you're like, oh, but no one's gone left before. And it's like, go left, go left. It's like, are you listening to your soul's whispers? I have this so much, with small things in business, maybe again, like a piece of content that I want to create. And all of a sudden that video ends up going viral. It's not because I sat down and said, okay, let me ask AI for 20 top viral video concepts. Like, no, this came through as creativity at some point. It kept coming, this little whisper. And I was like, okay, let me film this, even though it's a little left field, is maybe a little out of my brand or my niche, but needs to be spoken and said for whatever reason. So let's go for it. So there's been so many things, from little things like that to huge life changes, which have been like the whispers of the soul,
What has been the most kind of turn left moment where you were like, I totally didn't see this for me? Because I know you talk about 2 types of manifestations. Tell me some surrendered manifestation example that you were like, this is totally so turn left, but I did it and I manifested exactly how it was probably meant to be.
Yeah, it's interesting that there have been so many examples. One that I'm present to, which was, in the last couple of years, Wampa, my husband, and I have been looking for a piece of land in Costa Rica for about 2 years, on and off. We'd be kind of searching, and we thought we found a really beautiful piece. It was a small piece, enough to build a nice, simple home on, and we were like, okay, this is amazing. And we're about to close on this deal. Like, everything's ready. The money's in escrow. Like, we're ready to go. And Wampa wakes up at 4 a.m. and he's like, we're making a huge mistake. I said, why? Like, wow, this land is amazing. And he said, no, I had a vision and I've seen this other piece of land with fruit trees and waterfalls and springs and ocean views and this and that and houses. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a really beautiful vision, but like, we haven't seen that. We've been looking for 2 years. We haven't seen anything like that. And he's like, well, I think we need to find out. I said, okay, you have 48 hours because we need to okay, we're not going to dream on this for too long. He calls the guy that is helping us with the land. And this guy, his name's Jimmy. He's like, this is crazy, guys. He's like, this land just came across my desk last night. It's not listed. It's exactly what you're talking about. He's like, get in the car. So we get in the car, we drive, and we stand on this land, and we just knew immediately. And, this piece of land is now turned into cumulative 600 acres, an amazing conscious residency that we're building, and beautiful structures. And it's evolved into this vision. But from both of us, if we hadn't have actually been in this state of surrendered manifestation, and we were trying to do it in a manufactured, structured way of what we thought we wanted, then we wouldn't have had this piece of land. This whole vision of it's called the nest just wouldn't have ever come to life, or it would have come maybe 20 years later or something like that, But when you're in this place and you're trying to control every detail and you're like, it must happen this way, you can't even see the magic. Wampa wouldn't have even have told me about that dream. And even if he had have, if I hadn't been open to it, I would have just said, oh, don't worry about it. Like, we're doing this. This is the plan. It's got to happen this way, right? And so often when you tap into surrendered manifestation, there's something so much greater waiting for you that maybe you can't even see. We didn't even have this big vision in the beginning. We were like, we just want to build a house and live a simple life. And apparently it got big and complicated, but here we are.
And I love certain parts of that. And maybe it leans us into having that guidance to how it manifests in reality. Let's see if I'm hearing some of the nuances of the story and seeing if there's something, right? So first was Wampa actually listening to something that may have at that point probably felt like a dream.
Yeah.
right? Because at 4 a.m. in the morning, I imagine he was sleeping.
Yeah, he was.
And he woke up from a dream
Yes.
saying, we've got this all wrong. We have to do
Yeah.
something else. So to be able to listen, to be present enough to be able to listen that there is a guidance coming to you.
Yes.
That seems like step one in a way.
Yes.
Step two is almost, which is what you said, or what I hear what you said, is 48 hours. That's what you get. Figure this out. Let's call whoever we need to call. So it's
Yeah.
almost like put a constraint.
Mhm.
That's at least what is being present to me. Tell me if I've got this all
Yeah.
right. Put a constraint and put some action to it.
Yeah.
It's like, let's put some constraints, some action
Yes.
towards it so we can actually keep this surrendered
In motion.
manifestation into motion, or put
Yes.
it into motion.
Exactly.
And then once action is taken,
Yeah.
probably follow through is what you're in the phase right now of, is to
Yeah.
accept and follow through.
Yeah.
Does that feel like loosely what somebody would do to be
Absolutely.
creating surrendered manifestation, or post
Absolutely.
getting the guidance?
Yeah, and that action piece is really important, because what we could have also done is said, okay, all right, let's cancel that piece of land, the initial one, and let's just, lean into the vision and see what happens. If we hadn't have called the guy, it wouldn't have happened, I don't think. He would have called someone else,
Because he
So,
thought you already bought the thing you needed to buy.
he was like, those
so-
guys are done. He
Yeah.
wouldn't have even thought of us to call us. He's like, actually, I wouldn't interfere with that deal and confuse them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, really important, that action. And really the next layer of it is to trust the guidance. How many times do we listen and we create the space and we receive the intuitive nudge or the download or the yes or the no, and we maybe don't take action, or maybe we do, but we don't trust it, and we don't actually move into that place. And how many times have we not trusted it and then been like, oh, I knew it. I knew that person was kind of like that. I knew that I should have gone to that event. I wish I listened, right? I wish I trusted what I was hearing, right?
Yeah.
So that's such an important piece.
How do you build that, let's call it noise canceling, to be able to surrender? Because the first one, manufactured manifestation, I would say most of my life has been manufactured manifestation. I think I'm brilliant at it, by the way, because anything I say is going to happen happens. Like everything I've written ever, it's like I write it as 10-year vision and it happens in 3 years. Like I am one of those guys. Like I don't know why it works. It works. I just accidentally happen to be great at manifesting, at least manufactured one.
Yeah.
Surrender one is I'm new to.
Yeah.
I'm very new to it, where I'd say, you know what? I know generally where I want to go. Like this is kind of general, but I'm not saying this is how it'll look like.
Right.
I'm more like, oh, let's see what this is. Oh, let's see what this is. And it has actually, and I don't know if I've realized anything or not, because I don't know, because I didn't put it into words just yet, except for when I was watching a video. So like, oh, that's kind of like where I am right now. It feels like, and it feels like that movement in my life have increased ever since I have started to surrender to what I am getting from the universe, instead of this is what I want by this timeline.
Yeah. So that's the big challenge with manufactured manifestation. It works. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not that people are trying to do it and it doesn't work. I lived my whole life that way, but also at what cost? For me, I really pushed the limits and I was burnt out. I was exhausted. I was living off coffee. I was barely sleeping. I was like manufacturing every little detail to make sure I got my life to a certain layout, which I did. But lucky for me, I was burning out at 22, 23 and learning those lessons. If I was burning out when I was 50, 60, we would have had a big problem, right? Okay. And so many people continue in that forcing, pushing, stress, hustle kind of vibe, right? Which can be subtle or it can be extreme in their life. But when you start tapping into surrendered manifestation, you start learning to go with the flow. You start learning that synchronicities happen and you can actually create so much more leverage with your manifestations. It's like if someone's working just with manufactured manifestation as a frequency, in my eyes, it's like 10% of their true manifestation potential. And they hit caps and limits. And you can get there, but people do cap out, either with their energy or their time or their money. It's like you hit these limits, right? But when you tap into surrender manifestation, it's like this amazing flow starts coming through you. And there's miracles, there's divine synchronicities, there's things that happen which just seem like, how? That's like almost impossible from the outside looking in, but it's so divinely laid up and you're going with the flow instead of like pushing against the current.
Do you think we get burnt out with manufactured manifestation because we are chasing a timeline, or we are dreaming too big a dream? Why does a burnout happen?
Yeah, it can be chasing a timeline. It's not so much chasing so big a dream. It's more the frequency that you're living from. So what most people are doing, even if they're taking action, because still with surrender manifestation, you still got to take action. You got to show up. You got to participate in the process. But from where? So most people, when they're taking action in their life to bring their manifestations to life, they're doing it from a frequency of, how do I make this happen? Okay, I have this dream. Now I got to make it happen, right? Now, what's happening underneath the surface when someone says that or thinks that or acts from that place, it's actually from a place of fear. It's from a place of contraction, because you're telling the universe, how do I make it happen? Basically, if I don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. So
It's desperation.
you're operating from this place of not fully trusting that the universe has your back and everything, of course, is going to happen, right? So instead of like, how do I make it happen? How do I make it happen? How do I make it happen? And living our life consciously or unconsciously from that place, surrender manifestation is like, okay, I know it's done. It's non-negotiable. Like, I've lined it up. I've done the inner work. I've seen it. I know it's mine. It's in alignment with my soul. Here it is. Now I'm going to take action. What can I do to take action to speed up the process? Right? And can you feel the difference even in that frequency? It's not like, okay, how do I make it happen? Yeah. It's like, okay, it's happening. It's done. Like, I can actually like sit back and allow myself to take action, but knowing that I'm just playing a part in speeding it up. It's already done. But if I do things, it's going to happen faster. And it's like, when you operate from that place. So that's really the big difference. It's not so much what we do or what we're driven by or the time or the dream, but it's more like the frequency that's sitting behind it.
Yeah, I feel it, and I think it's what you're saying, and what I'm hearing is that it's the energetic difference on how you're approaching it. One is contraction, one is expansion, one is tension, one is relaxation, or one is
One is
a
hustle,
timeline.
one
One
is
is
flow.
hustle and timeline. Another one is understanding that it'll happen in the timeline that it needs to happen, and that you can be comfortable and lean into it, and do whatever is required to do for it still. There is one thing that I've found often, especially with my clients, clients that are, and a lot of our listeners are life coaches, business coaches, health coaches, coaches in different fields, spiritual life coaches, and this challenge that happens, at least challenge that I have observed happen for coaches and for coaching and for clients of these coaches, is we tend to get turned on to spirituality post, say, 45. I'm not saying it's true for everyone. I am under 40 myself. You're under 40 yourself. But usually that's where like our clientele tend to be 45 plus, right? And unfortunately, and I've not hit that age, so I don't know why it happens, or I've no direct experience of it. But what I feel is very often there's a lack of trust that the person has in universe's plan, or trust with themselves, depending on who you're talking to. But it feels like that even when they're approaching something like manifestation, they're almost resisting it, because not because they don't think it works, but it almost feels like it works for Regan. It might work for Ajit. But it doesn't work for me, right? It's almost like they believe somebody else has a superpower, and I don't. How do we rebuild that trust?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember with manifestation that we're all born manifestors. It's not some God-given gift that some people have and some people don't. It's not like a secret talent that someone was just born with and some people weren't. It just comes down to, have you learnt useful tools and are you applying them and are you practicing them? Like, it's actually very systematic. And look, everything you do and don't have in your life right now, you've manifested or you haven't manifested, but it's all a reflection of you. So I feel if someone really is self-responsible and is standing in their power and they're saying, okay, cool, yeah, I really understand, like, my 3D reality, my life is a reflection of me, then that is also a reflection of them as a manifester. And that also means that at any moment they could learn something, they could change it, they could learn a manifestation skill, they could practice it. It's not because Regan's really good at this and someone else isn't. No, it's just maybe we've done a lot more work on this, right? It's like how many years, how many hours, how many courses, how many ceremonies, how many walking this path, you know? People love to look at Beyonce now and be like, wow, I'm like, okay, what did she do when she started? Like, that's what I care about. Where did she go in her journey? This is why we have conversations like this, to unpack it, you know, and help people. But if someone can really take their power back and realize, like, oh, manifestation is my natural state. I'm a born manifester, and maybe I need some tools and education around that. And then maybe I practice that, then the sky's the limit.
I love that. And I love the part where you said, look at the journey where the person started instead of looking at the destination, where you're looking them up there on a pedestal and going, wow, they can do it.
Yeah.
Instead of look at where they started and suddenly you go, oh, that's manageable. That I can do, that I can start with. And I realize that that's also true for businesses, because
Yeah.
a lot of times people go, well, Ajit, this is what you're doing at Mindvalley, or this is what you're doing in your coaching business. How do you
Yeah.
charge that kind of money? I was like, but I started with nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you got to understand
Yeah.
that when I first pitched my coaching services, I was charging less than $100 an hour.
I think I was
Right?
worse
And
than you.
yeah,
I was literally
so-
worse
so,
than you, right?
yeah.
Like my one-on-one packages now are $1 million investment, right?
Yeah.
For 12 months of full-on coaching. But
Yeah.
when I started out, okay, I was charging, I think it was $270 or $300, like around that point,
Yeah.
for 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I would call them twice a week for 2 hours.
Oh my
Like, I don't
God.
know what the maths is on that, but it's like below minimum wage.
Yeah.
And guess what? I was so happy about it.
Yeah.
I remember my first client, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, someone has invested in me to help them change their life. What an honor. It was the best $300 that I ever made in my entire life. But that's where it started. It started there. It didn't even start as a 10K package. Like, no, it started at $300 for a 12-week super time intensive program.
Yeah, but that's what people forget. People
Yeah.
forget that, don't worry. Like, we all started where we didn't believe in ourselves a little bit. We didn't
Yeah.
believe in our ability to do something. We probably were not as great manifestors. We were probably not, visualizing big dreams, or maybe we were still, I still feel I was visualizing big dreams. I don't know. But at the same point in time, it wasn't like now the dreams are even bigger than what
Yeah.
it was at that time. Like, my then dream is my current reality.
Right.
My future dream is going to be my reality in
Yeah.
a few years from now. But the comfort of the journey of actually asking, hey, listen, where did they start?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at where are they now, let's replicate what they're doing now. Instead of them,
Yeah.
ask where were they starting with.
Yes. And then
And you'll find your own path then.
you find your own path. And it's also about just being humble with where you're at. Like when I started out with those first coaching clients, I was like, yeah, okay, in the future, if I love this, I might charge more. But I didn't go out and try and charge 100K or something. I was like, I'm going to charge $300, and this is what feels really good. This is my first client. Some people aren't willing just to start there. Even prior to that, my first 5 or so clients, I coached them totally for free. I was like, people were trying to pay me. They were like, this has helped me so much. Can I PayPal you? And I was like, no, I'm still learning, right? And so that's where I started. And people have to also just be willing to be like, yeah, this is where I'm at, and this is what feels good. And you build it from there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another reminder in the same context is also know that you can start at any time.
Yeah.
Like, we all start all the time at different stages. You just take all the learning that you've had, like carry your past into your present, not your future, but at least the learnings of your past you can carry forever.
Yes.
So you can start the journey whenever you want. So it doesn't matter you started in your 20s, I started in my 30s, but you can start whatever. It's
Whenever you
perfectly fine.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And you're never going to feel ready. I think so many people are waiting, like, okay, now I'm ready to set up my coaching business, or now I'm ready to get my first client. Like, I'm sorry, but if you feel ready, you've left it too late. Like, you need to you need to get started. Get real where you're at and start where you're at and be humble with that. And also, like, just start. We learn from starting and trying things on and moving forward. We don't learn from reading books. We don't learn from sitting there and just journaling about something. We learn from doing it. And we're going to do it, and then we're going to do things and be like, okay, I'll never do that ever again. Like, now let me try this. And then you'll find something you love and you keep going, but you have to start.
You absolutely have to start. And there's another person I was reading the book of, or preparing for in podcasting with them, and they talk about something called 51% ready, where they share that you don't have to feel 100%. You have to feel a little more than 50% for you to say, all right, let's sleep, because there will be no 100%. I wanted to, whenever I'll speak to them, I wanted to correct them and say, "Oh, I leaped when I was 30% ready." To be very honest, because I was like, I don't know what is 50%. I'm right now, I'm talking to someone, I'm gonna just leap, and they're gonna see worst case scenario, I'm gonna fall on my face, and and I still go to bed in the night, and I still wake up tomorrow, and I try again. So with that, what is some of the weirdest beliefs or odd beliefs that you've heard people have about manifestation that you're like, come on, that's not how this works?
Look, I think a lot of people think manifestation is just basically The Secret. You know, they watch The Secret, be it now or 10 years ago or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's manifestation. I watched it. I tried it. I tried to manifest a space in the parking lot. It didn't work. And that's it, right? And they're like, oh, and thoughts become things. And I'm a little worried because I thought some bad thoughts today. So now I've ruined my future. So people have all these constructs and they think that manifestation is just the mind. They think it's just thoughts become things. They think it's just the secret and the principles in there, but that's just like, you know, the 5% little icing on the cake, right? It's a tiny little piece of a huge puzzle. And look, that movie was great because it opened so many people's eyes to this world and it got so many people curious and thinking, but also there's so much more to it. People don't realize it's an energetic game. It's a vibrational game. It's your frequency is your currency. It's a frequency game, right? And you must have all layers of your being coming into coherence to be an energetic match for what you're looking to call in. So I think that's one of the biggest problems is like, oh, it's just about the mind, but it's so much more.
True. And how does one keep their vibrational frequency in a way where they stay on path? Like there's a lot of practical steps that you talk about in the book and also on your platforms. You talk about you must take action, you must get clear on your goals, and you get the right circle. There were many steps that you have, and we can go into that as well. But one of the things that is present to me is that you vibe high, and that's what you're advocating. How does one, like, if there was a practice or a few practices that you're like, hey, try this,
Yeah,
for you to be energetically in alignment with, creation?
for sure. So there's many different ways to raise your vibration and your frequency, and we could be here all day listing them out, and they're all great. And the fastest way to raise your frequency is to actually remove anything that's lowering your frequency. Right. And so many people, there's a lot of talk of be high vibe and do this. But if someone's running around and they're like, yeah, I love money and money loves me, and they're just like chanting affirmations and feeling in a good vibe, but they have all this density inside them and around them in their life, it pulls the frequency right down. So it's good to look at this through the frame of your environment. You know, let's say you're working really hard on elevating your frequency and you go into a room, maybe it's people you know or an event or even family, and all of a sudden you just feel your energy like, you're like, wow. Everyone's super negative. You tell someone about your dream and they're like, who are you to do that? Like, that's crazy talk, like, right? And everything just elevates down. It's so much harder for that person to keep their vibration high if they're in that environment. So for anyone listening, you know, just take stock at what is currently lowering my vibration. Now, this could be people around you. This could be people you're following on social media with content you're consuming. That's just not great for you. This could be family members that you're interacting with. This could be food that you're eating. This could be not moving your body and you're feeling sluggish, for example. Like, there's so many different layers with this, and it's going to be different to everyone. Maybe it's alcohol that's lowering your vibration. There could be so many things, right? Probably, right? So many things, but list it down. And then from there, you can choose to make the changes. From there, you can say, you know what? I'm not going to hang out with those people anymore. You know what? If that family member starts going on that rant, I'm going to just not let that affect me. And I'm going to be like, okay, that's their rant, and I'm not going to take it on board. I'm going to clean up my social media feed so I don't see all this garbage every day, right? So you start taking that action. Yeah. And then from there, the next layer of this really is to start getting into the frequency of having already received whatever it is that you want. So in order to become a vibrational match, we must match our own internal vibrational frequency with the thing that we're looking to call in. So if that's a certain amount of money, we must feel it like it's already here. If that's a beautiful, loving relationship, we must feel what it feels like to be in that relationship. So one of the things someone can do with this, I call it energetic conditioning. They can set an alarm on their phone, multiple alarms throughout the day, ideally like every hour, and a nice alarm, like a peaceful one, not like brr, brr, like a good one, right? And it's like a frequency alarm. And when it goes off, I want you guys just to stop, close your eyes, and feel what it feels like if you already had it. Feel what it feels like if your manifestation was here now. And this can be 30 seconds. This is not a huge ritual where you're meditating in a cave, like 30 seconds, and you're like, okay, and now the first few times you do it, you might not feel anything. Keep going. And I promise you, if you do this for days and then weeks, like, you will start to feel the feelings. And when you do, tell your system to double it. Tell your system to triple it. Make it stronger. Turn it up. Dial it up. And from that place, you start raising your frequency into that place until, I promise you, the alarm will go off and you'll be like, oh, I feel like it's already here. I'm in that state. And then all of a sudden the alarm will go off and you'll blur the lines between your future and your past, and you'll be like, is it here? Oh no, oh no, it's not quite here, but it feels like it is here. And then the alarm will go off and the thing will be there, right? In which case you repeat and you keep going.
Beautiful. And it reminds me, everything that you said is so beautiful, and I can find clues of it all through my life. And as
Yeah.
I became a better and better manifester, I don't know if better is the right word here, but definitely manifested, the collapse of timelines started to happen a lot more. It was a lot about the cleaning up of the environment. So there
Yeah.
was a point in life where people around me were just not, I was meeting people because I moved to a new city, Austin, like 3 years ago, right? And when you go to a new city and you like one person in the city, we just like the vibe. We have 2 kids and we were going to have our daughter at that time. So we were like, all right, we want to move to a place. We lived in LA before. I didn't like the vibe of LA, like frequency wise. And I was like, let's move to Austin. Feels more friendly to families. And we want to raise our kids in a place where they don't feel pretentious and we don't feel pretentious.
Yeah.
And so we moved to the city. And because of that, you meet a lot of people. And I found myself hanging out with people all the time, but like almost like I needed a detox after hanging out with people.
Yeah.
Like I needed to like be like, oh, I feel so, like off after I have met people.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like, wow, I hung out with friends. Instead of that, which should theoretically fuel you, or practically should actually also fuel you, but wasn't. And I was going through this program, and in that they were talking about how to increase your charisma. And in that program, they say to increase charisma, you will see you're very charismatic when you hang out with people you like. Like it was just a very simple, practical thing. And I was like, hold on, isn't that true for everything?
Yeah.
Right? Not just charismatic. You're happier, you're more fulfilled,
Yeah.
you probably manifest a lot because of that as well. At that time, I didn't know this particular thing that you just shared. And I realized that the more I cleaned up the people around me, because I literally started, and it sounds terrible now, but I started rating how I felt after I met someone.
Yeah.
So if I hung out with someone, did I feel a 5? Did I feel a 10? Did I
Yeah.
feel a 1? I basically energetically. And if it was anything under a 8, I was like, I don't want this.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I don't want this, because these
Yeah.
were also not like my childhood friends or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I value those relationships differently. But at least like people that I was meeting new, I was like, these people, I don't think they are as like, I have a relationship with people that were in my childhood. They are not at the same career level as I am, but there's a different bond. They are what I heard some other author talk about it, and they labeled it as useless friends. They have no practical use in my life except to have a big laugh, have a
Yeah.
great time, have nothing to wear, like I have no mask,
Yeah.
nothing. And if I would by accident bring on my mask, they will slap the shit out of me. Useless friends. They have no agenda with me and I have no agenda with them.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different thing. But people that I was inviting into my life were more adult friendships, if I may call them, which also are not as deep immediately. They take time, at least in my experience. So I realized that I didn't need to. Why would I build a deep relationship when I feel a 5 after meeting them?
Yeah.
Right? So suddenly you could
Totally.
go, oh, clean up, clean up, clean up.
Yeah.
It same happened with my Instagram feed. I was like, why am I following 1,000 people?
Right.
Like useless. I only want to, I
Bye-bye.
only want to, like, if you look at my feed, it looks like an affirmative field.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, everybody is like just positive, saying about how you're creating, and
Yeah.
the vibe is just high. There's no war. There's nothing. I know it sounds very ignorant, but it is very clean because I know that I will get deeply affected the moment I see it, right? So I have
Yeah.
to be like very clean about that energy.
Yeah.
I also realized that, and I don't know how, if you think it's a good idea or not, so love to get your thoughts on it, but solitude, or just being able to say, you know what? And I used to do an hour, I at least do 30 minutes every day with just me with me.
Yeah.
And just going, all right, what are my thoughts? Where am I? Like, how's my frequency, if I may? It's also, I'm very thought, the rational mind kind of guy. So I go, oh, what are the thoughts that are like kind of bringing me down, in the sense they have weight on me?
Yeah.
So I want to take them out. And
Yeah.
what are the thoughts that are like lifting me? I want to sow more of them.
Yes.
And be able to elevate me. So I found those practices that you're talking about are so effective.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you vibe at a different level. And so your manifestation also transpires and becomes so much faster.
Totally, for sure. And environment is such a big piece. And also being with yourself is such a big piece. You know, when I started very early on, really grasping the power of relationships and environments, and I looked around and it's similar to you with you know, rating people after you hang out with them. I kind of rated just, you know, in my own way, the people that I was interacting with. And I was just even more simple than you. I was like, do I feel good after I've been around them or not?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, 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 no. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm asking the wrong question. I was like, okay, do they support my dreams? If I tell them my dreams and my vision, no, 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 no. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I started cleaning up my environment. I actually moved country, right? I moved from New Zealand to Australia. And one of my big reasons was I was like, I need to get out of the environment I'm in and put myself in a new environment. And I did that. And I was like, okay. And I did the cleanup and I disconnected from people and I stopped saying yes and going to things and I released some relationships fully. I had this weird moment when I moved to Melbourne, Australia, and I was sitting there and I was like, I have no friends. Like,
Yeah.
and then the story came. It's lonely at the top. I wasn't even at the top. I was like just below the bottom. I was like, if this is like me starting, what is the top going to be like? This is terrible. And I was like, okay, this is a story. And then I asked myself, you know, why am I so uncomfortable in this emptiness?
Yeah.
And I realized that we've been so conditioned to fill the emptiness. Whenever there's something, fill it up. Whenever there's a space, don't have the silence. Whenever you're not around someone, find someone to be around. Whenever you're slightly hungry, eat immediately. Like all of this. And I was like, okay, why am I uncomfortable with the emptiness? And then I realized like there was a part of me that was scared to go into it. And deeper than that, there was a part of me that was scared to be alone. And so I started being alone more and I started being okay with the aloneness and the emptiness. And I started actually celebrating it because I realized that it was creating space in my system for new people, for new relationships, for new ideas. And so then intentionally, one by one, I started going to events. I started meeting different people. I was like, I want to be around people like this, people like that. I would go to events similar to Mindvalley, but in Australia. And I started just knowing no one. You know, I was 20 years old and I was like the youngest person in the room. And I was like, I'm just going to go. And I sat there and I would meet people and I would keep checking in. How do I feel? You know, I feel really good being around this person. Actually, I feel inspired being around this person, right? And one by one, piece by piece, I started crafting that environment. And then all of a sudden I had a beautiful circle around me. And then something interesting happened. I started realizing that if I could elevate my frequency even more and work on myself energetically more, I shifted from having to put myself in those environments to people coming to me. And I noticed this shift happen where like people, I would just walk into a coffee shop and someone would be like, hi, like, hey, like, you know, what do you do? I want to get to know you. And like, I would have interactions like this that I just didn't have before when my personal frequency was lower. So it's been a stepping stone. It's been a journey. And it's like you, like now both of us, right? We're surrounded by amazing people only.
Yeah.
And our newsfeed is awesome only. And like, but we've worked to get it to this place. It's not like we were set up like that or born like that or living like that. Like it's such a journey with your environment, you know?
It is so true. And I think, and tell me if it's true for you as well. I think at some point when you start to do all this cleanup, it sounds harsh, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like from outside, it looks like, wow, you're like not talking to a person you were talking to before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
harsh. But I almost feel when I was doing this exercise was one of the greatest acts of self-love I ever did.
I was about to say that.
Is because finally I was able to say, you know what, I'm going to honor what
Yeah.
I find true for me. And because now I am in love with myself, I truly believe that now finally, after doing so many years of work, like I was running Mindvalley at a time,
Yeah.
I did not love myself. Absolutely
Mm.
did not. Like I never gave myself space to be able to even understand what the hell it was.
Wow.
But I was running I was a great manifester still, but very
Yeah.
manufactured. And very much about, you know, rah-rah and hoo-ha.
Yeah.
And I'm a great worker. I can work
Yeah.
really hard if I have
Yeah.
to. Didn't know the rules of the universe, which doesn't require you to work really hard, which is a different thing. But even when I started, once I quit, once I started coaching, I wasn't really like, I couldn't understand the idea even of self-love.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put my head to it, and it felt very feminine as well. It felt like,
Yeah.
oh, it's for women.
Fluffy.
They've had so much, and I totally understand why women must have it, because they haven't been loved the way they need to be. So of course they need to grow self-love, right? So it was such a
Yeah.
stupid thing to think now that I think about it. But at that time, that was my truth. I was like, yeah,
sure.
no, Nita, you should listen to my friend here, and Marissa, you were right, and Regan, everybody's right. You should, all women must self-love, until I realized that, dude, it's a human thing.
Yeah.
It's not a man or a woman thing.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a human thing. We've
Yeah.
all disconnected from ourselves so much
Yeah.
that we have forgotten that the ultimate of the greatest way of living life is to live in love with yourself, not
Yeah.
in a narcissistic way, but in a way where you're like, oh, I honor for who I am, and more
Yes.
I'm in love with myself. Easier is surrender. Easier is
Exactly.
manifestation. Easier is creation.
Yes. Boundaries are self-love. Saying no when everyone else is like, oh, you must say yes, is self-love, right? Not tolerating something anymore in your life, even though it's normal in your family, is self-love. Like, all of these pieces are just so deep. And you're right. Self-love can be tagged as such a girl's thing, you know,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
so important. It's so important. And in fact, you know, I would go as far to say that I think our men need to tap into self-love even more. I think a lot of the women do it quite naturally. And even the women think, oh, that's kind of a feminine thing, and they're more educated around it. But for some men, I feel a lot of men are like, oh, that's a girl thing. What do you mean self-love? Yeah, I love myself, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Versus like, no, actually, like, you know, I'm going to love myself. Even if that's saying no to my wife, that I'm not going to go to that engagement social thing that she wants me to go to, because actually I need to love myself and actually go to the gym right now and clear my energy and be a
Yes.
man and look after myself. Like, that is self-love.
Yes, that
And I
is
think a
self-love,
lot of
yeah.
men need to hear that.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I think because of how we are wired as society, and thank goodness for women coming more and more into the workplace and becoming the leaders in all of society, because there was big time when that wasn't the case. And so we as men only learned how to suppress ourselves.
Yeah.
But women are naturally tuned in. Like, they're just, I don't know if it's born that way, or, but it's basically a feminine energy is so tuned in into emotions, into understanding emotion, understanding other people, which is why they tend to be better leaders. And the future of work is women in many ways because of that reason as well. But the only way we can learn that lesson is by women coming into leadership. Because I don't see a guy ever in, let's say, 1970s, if I was to go back like 50 years, I don't see a man saying, you know what, we all should love ourselves.
Yeah.
No, I don't see that at all. Right? Maybe not even in the 80s. I don't see that happen at all. Right? But today, somebody like me can have a conversation about it. It's thanks to women, because you started the movement. We didn't. We would still find it hard to be able to say, I love myself. It would be like super awkward if I said it in front of random 10 guys right now, even for that matter. If they're aware at a Mindvalley event, they will totally be like, yes, I hear you, bro.
That's different.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
You're amongst friends.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
All right. There's your book title, the one that I got a chance to really go to get a little bit more deeper view of your work, was it's called Change Your Life in 3 Minutes. 3 minutes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So many people think that to change their life, they need to do something every day, every morning for 30 minutes or for 1 hour or for 2 hours. And let's be real, like, with the society we live in, people just don't have that time, or they're not willing to create that time, at least, you know? So the concept of this is like, look, just give yourself 3 minutes every day for the rest of your life, and I promise you, your life will change. If that's 3 minutes of journaling or meditation or connecting with your soul or your own way of connecting into self-love, whatever it is for you, whatever you're focusing on, 3 minutes is so much more powerful than 0 minutes. And everyone has 3 minutes. Everyone has 3 minutes, no matter how busy you tell me you are, how many children you have, how many jobs you are working, you have 3 minutes, even if it's right at the end before you fall asleep or right in the beginning before you get out of bed, you have 3 minutes. And if you do this, the compounding effect starts to happen. It's not 3 minutes every day. It's like you put $1,000 in the bank and you leave it there and it accumulates some sort of interest, probably not much, but let's imagine the banks were giving some sort of good interest rate. And then you don't take the interest out, you leave it there and it accumulates and accumulates. All of a sudden you have a lot more money in the bank. It's the same with the 3 minute concept.
Okay. And it's similar to the 2% philosophy that you shared in one of the other videos that I saw. Like, if it was 2% compound interest that you were getting, it will accumulate over time. What am I doing in these 3 minutes, by the way?
Well, the book breaks down many different like practices and processes you can go through, but really ultimately any work on yourself, any work which might be focusing on your vision, it might be working on your capacity to expand your receiving, it might be clearing out blocks and limitations, it might be getting clear on your environment and changes you're making, it might be saying, you know, how do I get to love myself more today? It might be defining what action you're taking from a place of surrendered manifestation. It doesn't matter so much. It's going to be very unique and specific to everyone. But what counts is, are you connecting in with yourself 3 minutes minimum every single day?
Okay, so it's more a practice of figure out what are different practices. And you can get the book, and of course the book has a lot of practices, but in summary, it's about spending that time with yourself in the manifestation.
Totally. And people get this book and they start working through the processes, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'm committing to the 3 minutes, and all of a sudden it's 10 minutes, and then it's 15. And then they're like, I have this amazing practice I do in the morning for 45 minutes. I never thought that would be possible. It's amazing what happens when you fall in love with it too.
Amazing. Is there a odd practice, like something that's like so weird that if we talk about it, people will be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Sure.
But it totally works. Tell us one of them or two of them.
There's lots of weird things. So one of the things that I guess people might think is really weird is clearing your unconscious mind. Right. So our unconscious mind is running the show, as you know, right? It's pumping the blood around our body. It's beating our heart. It's doing all these things. But it's also depicting our conscious reality, which then impacts our thoughts and how we feel every day, and everything's all connected. But a lot of it is the unconscious system. Now, if we're not clearing the unconscious system, it's almost like we never shower. You wouldn't just go weeks without showering. You'd be like, I need to clean my physical body. We also need to clean the unconscious mind. So there's many ways to do this, but one of the weirdest ways to do this is what I call gibberish. So this is where you literally use your body and your words to clear all of the stuck information that's in your conscious mind. So I recommend that someone puts on music, maybe something like a drum track or trance or like tribal or like something high energy, high beat, shake their body and like get into the joints, the wrists, the everything, right? Notice anything that's stuck and like really shake it. And then at the same time, you're going to speak gibberish, which if someone doesn't know, sounds a little bit like, right? And you're going to feel ridiculous and crazy. You can do it by yourself in your own room, but you do this for 2 minutes and then you stop and you have this like space in your system. You feel amazing because the unconscious information, it's like you're taking out the garbage and clearing it. So there's actually space to recognize what's going on. So people feel pretty weird doing that.
Oh, no, that sounds weird, but I could see totally it work. Like I could totally see it work. It's also because suddenly your mind doesn't know how to comprehend all the data because like, what the hell did just happen? You're like shocking the system almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's awesome. I love that. I was fascinated because I was following you, but for whatever reason, I wasn't getting enough of your feed. And yesterday, of course, I went all ape shit and researching the interview. And I realized that you have been on an insane number of covers of magazines or have had featured. Tell me the manifestation story of that.
Okay. So this was probably the time of recording this. This was probably just over 2 years ago. It might have been 2.5 years ago. And I was doing my work and tapping into my vision and the next stages in my life. And I started having this vision. And the only way I can describe it, it was like bringing my work and spirituality and these conversations on consciousness into the mainstream world. And I was shown this vision where I became almost this bridge between this mainstream, like very 3D world and this very out there spiritual world. And I got shown how both these worlds need each other and both of them have really amazing tools and lessons and ideas that would actually really benefit each other. And I got shown that I could be this bridge in between them. And so through the vision, I went deeper into it and I was like, well, how do I do that? And it's almost like the vision I saw, I called it the mainstream code. So I work a lot energetically with the energetic field. We all have an energetic field. You can even measure this now through certain types of photography. And the energetic field basically is where all of our structural information is stored. And so when we're working with, if you like, the clusters of that information, it creates certain templates, certain packets of information, certain codes. So as I do this work, my method, the energetic architecture method, helps people update that information, helps them change the geometries, it helps them clear anything that's not serving them. But when you get very advanced with this, you can also build new geometries within your own field in order to help you become a match for what you want. Okay. So I sat down and I intentionally built a template, a package of information within my energetic field of this mainstream code. Right. And so I built it, I started charging it up with information, and then I started anchoring in the vision of being in this mainstream world. And I wasn't attached to how it happened. I was like, okay, it might be certain TV shows, it might be certain magazines, it might be certain podcasts. Like I was just open. I was like, it's going to happen somehow that this bridge will be activated. And sure enough, it was probably about 5 months after that, everything started clicking and opening and manifesting. And yeah.
So what I hear is and I want to get a little bit more detail on one of the parts. You said you reprogram your energetic field with certain geometries, which is probably a deeper dive and probably several hours of conversation. So we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
But the second thing that you said is I charged up with information.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So you can build the template within your field, but it's almost like you have the car, but if you don't turn it on, it doesn't do anything. So
Okay.
you actually want to run an energy, and you do this simply through your own intention, an energy of it already being done, and you run that as a frequency stream of information through the template. And it's almost like it turns on, it lights up. The car's now ignited. It's ready to drive and go rather than just sitting there in the garage.
Okay. And then what was the last part? There was a third part, which is actually, I think you just put it out in the universe. That was the final.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I just continued to connect with
Yeah.
it. So it's not like I did it and then forgot about it. Like I was also.
Then of course it was followed up with action as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah,
It wasn't just
action.
like energetic feel, right? Yeah,
Of course. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely.
cool. Yeah. So when you're following up anything with action, do you like my process is when I go into once I know that I have got this vision, surrendered vision, however you want to call it, or something that's clear, knocked on my door enough times, universe has knocked on my door enough times that I know that this is it, that this is my calling, not data from the world.
Yeah.
Then I go and I hire everybody I can that will feed me action data because I don't know anything about it. Like even when
Yeah.
I decided I want to do a podcast, I said, I don't want to just do a podcast. I want to do it in a particular way. I want to do this work with it. I want to invest this kind of resources into it and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I hire everyone I can or hire information, if not people, something basically. Is that, and then I go, and that's my first step to action. Is that kind of similar to what you do? Or you go, no, let's go action and then information? Is there a dance that you have found that works better?
It's a dance. Yeah. I like to have information before I act because I feel like otherwise you might be just acting blindly, especially if it's something like big and new and you've never done it before and you just have no idea. Like, for example, if I was to start a podcast, I don't know where to start with that. So I wouldn't just be like, hey, everybody, I'm launching a podcast. Like I would want some information. I would want the right people around me. So yeah, definitely. I think it's similar. And I would always be, again, asking like, what is my intuitive next step? What is my soul's guidance? I work directly with my guides and I'm like, show me what to do. I've learned to become just very obedient to that guidance, which is coming through. And sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes I want the ego, the mind of Regan wants, okay, we're going to do this now because I just had this idea and it's going to be amazing and we need to launch it by this time. I had this with a team member recently and, my marketing manager was like, no, we're going to do it in 2 months. And I was like, but I want to do it next week. And he's like, we're not. And here's why. And there's other things going on. And it makes much more sense to do it in 2 months. And I'm like, okay, got it. So yeah, it's that beautiful balance, I feel.
Yeah. The reason why I asked this question is because I know in my awareness, a lot of times it's a struggle because you don't know what to trust and what not to trust. What is really the guidance and what is not the guidance? Like there's one technique that I shared, which is for me is wait 30 days. But certain things cannot wait 30 days because they are immediate actions. The question is when things are not working out and you feel like you're being guided wrong, let's say, or you feel like the guidance has been wrong, because let's say you're putting up a timeline to it and it hasn't happened in the timeline. This is just me hypothesizing at this point.
Yeah.
Because there could be many reasons for it, right?
Yeah.
It may be that you didn't put a timeline, but everything that you're doing to make that guidance to realize into the 3D world is not necessarily happening,
Mhm.
and now you're getting frustrated and you feel like, am I really being guided, or this was a scam?
Yeah, I want my money back.
I want my money back, my guys. How is it that, because here's where I am, and it may be because it's a dance of manufactured and surrendered manifestation, is often our dreams are big. Often these guidances are for 5 months later, 7 months later,
Yeah.
you know? And to stay persistent to it for that length of time can often feel very difficult,
Yeah.
right? There's definitely tremendous amount of universe trust that you have built, which is why you can trust. Yeah, 5 months is not a big deal,
Yeah.
right? Because 5 months, if I take out of context of Regan,
Yeah.
for anybody else, will be like 5 months.
It's like half a year.
Yeah, it's like half a year on some guidance you had one day.
Yeah.
It sounds like there was so much faith you
Yeah.
have that no, it's happening. I know it's happening.
Yeah.
I know there's that you've said in surrender, that's kind of the first
Yeah,
step of
yeah.
the process, but what would you advise somebody that is kind of like going, oh, I don't know how to fight this?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. It is the wisdom and the deep knowing behind it that makes a difference versus doubting if it's happening or not, you know? So when I receive a layer of guidance and I know like, okay, this is like good, solid guidance, and I'm going to act on this. I'm not even going to leave it 30 days. I'm like, yeah, this is a thing, and I'm going for it, right? I have that groundedness and that certainty because I understand really deeply that I wouldn't feel that desire if it hadn't have already happened somewhere out there in my future. Okay, it's already happened because our soul speaks to us through desire. And this is where a lot of like spiritual people are like, desire's bad and wrong, and we should have no more desires. And I'm like, but we need desire, we need passion, we need that fire, we need like, oh, I want this in my life, right? Because our soul is literally using that as an emotional tool to be like, this is for you, right? Now, if you're connecting with something and you have really no deep desire for it, then it's probably not in that timeline, right? So if someone came to me and said, Regan, I'm so excited, I just bought a red Ferrari and it's this model, like I can be happy for them. And I'm like, that's cool. But there's no part of me, at least right now, where I'm like, I really want a red Ferrari. I just want one. I just don't have it. I could go and like manifest one, but I just don't have one. I don't desire that. It's probably because I don't have one somewhere, at least in my near future. I live in the jungle in Costa Rica. Like, why would I have a red Ferrari? It makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
No sense. But if there was something in me where someone told me that and I was like, okay, I'm happy for you. That's amazing. I want that too.
Yeah.
And you feel that desire, it means it is out there as a potential, right? And so because I know that, when I receive the guidance and I feel that desire of like, yes, that would be amazing, I trust that. And then it's not, again, a matter of will it happen? It's a matter of when will it happen? And I disconnect from the timing. Yes, it's nice to be like, on or before this date, and I want it to happen yesterday and all of that. Yes, and there is this like beautiful flow which is taking place, and I'm not worried about it because it's going to show up when it shows up. I know it is showing up with 100% certainty because I can feel that desire of my soul. So I'm not so worried about when. I trust also that it's going to be in the highest timing.
Beautiful. There's a fun story related to manifesting and not associating timeline, but knowing that it's happening in the future. When I first started my coaching business, one of the biggest dreams I had was that I'll add so much value to my client's life, they will send me a bonus of my entire fee. And that time my fee was $10,000. So that check was $10,000.
Yeah.
And it was not even a check. It was this particular Rolex that I wanted, because I was like, oh, nobody's going to send a check, you know, like if they want to bonus something, they're going to be like a gift. They're like, you know, you had so much value to my life. Here's a watch for you. Right. And the value of the watch was $10,000. Right. And so I was just starting out. And then I kind of forgot about that. Because I was like, oh, it didn't happen for the first 3-4 clients, first 2-3 years. So like, oh, it's not going to happen. I don't think people do that. Like, why would anybody? I mean, it's also a dumb thing. Like at that time I was telling myself, this is a dumb thing to expect.
Right.
Is that somebody would just say, yeah, sure, $10,000, even if that's not your fee. Like they've paid you for it and you're not cheap either. So it's not like I was at 10,000, but not anymore. Like you're charging hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Why would they give you $10,000 and the bonus just for like, for no joy whatsoever, right? You're already getting paid for what you do. And very well. So I was like, this is a dumb dream. Like, just quit it. So I have stopped thinking about it. And then lo and behold, one day I'm doing this intensive with one client, I'm done with the intensive. Everything's amazing. I've gotten paid. Everything's good. And I'm going about my life. And this person is also a very seasoned, very respectable coach themselves. Like they're phenomenal in the world, like one of the super seniors in The Secret movie, all that type of stuff. And so I'm done. I've helped their organization. Everything's beautiful. And I'm just at my home and I get this mail from this wonderful person. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what it is. And in my head, I'm like, oh, it's a thank you card. I get thank you cards all the time. It's a thank you card for, because it is the whole family and all that fun stuff. So I open it and I'm expecting a thank you card because I want to still read it and send thank you back and all that stuff. So I open it and lo and behold, it's a $10,000 check for which I bought this watch, which is why this watch is so important to me, is because I was like, oh, that was the thing, but it didn't happen in time. It happened 8 years later.
Yeah. 8 years.
8 years later. And again, I had forgotten about it. But sometimes if you track it, I think it helps you build trust with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of manifestation you had that you forgot. Because I forgot about it until I got the check. I was like,
for sure.
Hold on. And then I had to go back to my journal, like how you go, did I write? Oh my goodness, that's exactly what I wrote.
Yeah.
Because at that time I was charging $10,000 for a year coaching. And I said, I will get a bonus of the amount, which is $10,000. There's a $10,000 bonus check. Like this is not a part of the fee structure at all. This is not expected. So it's just, I share the story because sometimes, yes, it sounds like, oh crap, 8 years, that's a long freaking time. It's okay. I mean,
well, would you prefer it to not happen or take it in 8 years? I think everyone will take Rolex in 8 years.
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, so that I think is an interesting reminder that don't worry about the timeline.
Yeah.
If you know it's going to happen in the future, like you said, if it's there in your future, it'll happen. Sometimes it happens in the timeline, sometimes it doesn't, but you got to be patient with the manifestation a little bit.
I'm going to start writing down that my clients send me better gifts.
Yeah. Why not? Absolutely. They should already. Every listener on this podcast, here's Regan's address. Go to the nest.
Yeah.
All right, I have a few last questions. So this one is more so because and let's see where this question takes us. But I find that there are, at all stages of my life, I have some insecurities that I'm battling with. Are there any insecurities that you still battle with?
Yeah, I think that's a natural part of being human. And a natural part, especially when someone's continuously evolving and doing new things. Someone asked me the other day, they were like, oh, do you get nervous before you go on stage? Now, no, compared to how I used to be. But compared to how I am now, yes. Right? So before I walk on stage, I'm not like, oh, okay, just another day walking on stage. But there are the butterflies and there are nerves and I am checking in and there's self-doubt. Like, okay, how is this presentation? I have a super high standard. I want it to be the best ever. Is it going to be the best ever? Like the thoughts are racing and I do my work to also clear that. But I think those insecurities are also good. I think someone either is losing touch with themselves and their humanness or they're not growing if they don't have these insecurities like coming up and coming up to be seen and to be unlocked so you can shift to your next level. So I have a stack of them. And
Which one is it that you would like to share with? Remember, this community is of coaches. So if there's something that is more present that would kind of get somebody who's listening to or watching this right now go, I'm not alone. What would that be if there is one like that is present to you right now?
I mean, there's the one literally walking on stage tomorrow. Like even just before I came here, I was tracking my presentation. I was like, okay. And I had the self-doubt come and I was like, all right, is this like really the best that I can bring to that stage? And then I was like, I found my mind wanting to like go change my slides or adjust it. But then when I thought about it, I was like, no, that's totally just my lower self speaking. And I caught it as just the self-doubt and the insecurity. It wasn't guidance from my soul of your presentation is terrible, you need to go and redo it. No, my slides are done. They're sent to Mindvalley. Like it's good. We're finished and it's going to be great. But it's like that humanness is still there. I have this even sometimes with creating content. I'll film a video and be like, do I look the best this way or not? Or should I have filmed it more like this? Is that really relatable? Or will someone think and judge me like that if I say this? And and then I'm like, most of the time, like, no, those are just all my insecurities. Like, send it off.
Thank you for sharing that. I know it's important for people who are just starting out or who's just beginning to know that listen, it doesn't go away. You just learn how
No.
to deal with it.
You learn how to deal with it and you become faster at dealing with it. You
Yeah.
know, some of the insecurities I think are even the same, maybe showing up with different faces or different stories, but they're the same. But something that held me back for maybe weeks or months even now maybe holds me back for 2 minutes, right? So it's your capacity to catch it and move through it faster rather than being limited by it, you know?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What is something that you think everyone believes to be true, but it's totally not true?
I think a lot of people believe that if they want to change their life and create different results, they have to work really, really hard. A lot of people have that. And I had that deeply because it was very ingrained in my family. My dad's like, you must work hard. And I love working hard. Like you said earlier, I'm also I'm a hard worker in the sense that there's a part of me that thrives off it. And there's a part of me that sometimes tries to prove to the world, like, look how much work I did. And I did it all myself. That must mean I'm worthy and enough and valuable, right? Right. Whereas often that hard work program really doesn't actually get you what you want. Now, I'm not saying don't put in the hours. Sometimes you might even stay up all night working on a project. Do it if it's in alignment, but not from that place of trying to prove yourself. You know, if someone really wants to change their life, it's not about hard work, because if it would be, then everyone working like so many hours in their jobs would have their dream life because they're putting in more work. It's not true. It's not how we play the game, you know?
Yes, so true, so true. What is a belief that you would like to install for all human beings, or a belief that you would like to offer to the world?
Yeah, I would love people to believe that they really can have it all in their life. You know, there's a lot of people that don't believe this. I mean, even Oprah has a quote that says, you can have it all, just not all at once. And I disagree. I really disagree, because we're holistic beings and we're fully connected with every area of our life. So if you're going to elevate one area, you can elevate all areas, and you can do this simultaneously, and they can feed into each other. So a lot of people are like, okay, cool, I made the money, but I lost my relationship in the process. Or now I have the relationship, but I'm not looking after my health. Or now I have a great body, but I'm broke. And it's like all these things. And it's like, what if you actually just elevated every area of your life and it could happen simultaneously? If people really believed that they could have it all on their terms, the world would be a very different place.
So beautifully put, and so true, because I've been on both the boats. I lived that life where I thought you can't have it all. So I spent all my time, money, energy, not money, but time and energy into making money, and lost everything.
Yeah.
Had a wake up call and said, this is kind of dumb. It's not this life I signed up for. Let's see if there's another way of doing it. And now I don't think there's any area of my life where I feel like I'm settling, or I'm not getting exactly what I want, or not exactly what I want, but like my desires are being fulfilled as I design and as I explore them, as I create them.
Yeah.
It feels so doable to
Yeah.
have it all. It doesn't feel like the negotiation needs to happen. Before we conclude, I want to share an anecdotal story that kind of contextualizes that a little bit more. And that is, a research was done where the people were asked the question, are they lucky or not? And they found that irrespective, the people who just thought they were lucky tended to be, or happened to be, luckier in life. They tracked them for years, and they found that just because they believed they were lucky, they were getting more luck-like circumstances.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sets up the whole idea of the society around us. There's also another one. I think it's Randy Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg's sister. I think she said, choose 3 out of health, career, kids, love relationship, or something. Choose 3. You can have 3 out of 5 or something like that.
What?
And it was like,
Oh, no.
that's heartbreaking. It's like, why do I not, like, why do I have to choose, right? And that's just, but that's the construct of society.
Yeah.
That's the old system that we lived in,
Yeah.
where we believed there's only that much time, only that much resources, only that much money to go around.
Right.
But that's not true for the world that is.
Right.
I don't even know if it was true at that time, but definitely is not true today. And
Yeah.
all evidence presents to that it's definitely not true. So thank you for sharing that. Regan, there is so much more that we could talk about, and there's so much more people can learn from you. What would be some of the places that people who are listening to this right now are going, I want to learn more about this skill, I want to get these tools? What would be some of the places that they should check you out?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to reganhillyer.com, or it's Regan Hillyer on all the social media platforms. We post a lot of amazing content totally for free. So tune into that, send me a DM, and let me know that you came from this show as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Regan, for taking the time.
Thank you so much.